The initial plan was for me to do the just talking up here, but I can see now we're gonna actually have to do the meeting or like the discussions probably down below where the other Atronach is. The Iron Atronach. All right, good job. Thank you. You be gone.
It's just a pile of ash.
All right, down here, everybody. Hey, it's Burberry.
Hey,
Hey, hey there.
how's it going?
Burberry, you missed the warm up,
Pretty good.
Burberry.
Oh, the warm up? Oh dear.
Indeed.
Was it jumping jacks again?
It was jumping jacks again. Yes. We had our typical few people unable to already follow instructions.
Oh dear.
But that's fine. You got limbered up.
We'll show you following instructions.
All right, everyone. So, as I said, welcome to PvE Bootcamp. I will be going over a slight outline of things I would like to talk about that should help everyone hopefully get their DPS ready for the upcoming event. I'm going to try and cover a section and then open it up to questions, just so we can kind of like get through the content and then help people as best we can. Preferably without interruptions every 5 seconds. But I am here to help you all, so if you have questions, please write that down and remember to ask me. Very first thing that I would like to discuss is how to measure where you're at right now. So, most of you have already, seen the target skeletons that we have around the guild hall. For PvE DPS, there's a specific way to measure your DPS. Unfortunately, the precursor, while it isn't the guild hall, forget it exists. Besides having really low health, the precursor actually has lower armor resistances than the standard mob in ESO. So your numbers will probably end up being higher on it than typically if you did a different measurement. That trial dummy that we were also hitting, the big Iron Atronach over there, also don't use that for your parses, because the Iron Atronach actually has a bunch of debuffs applied to him and buffs given to you while you're fighting him, which is supposed to mirror, like, if you were in a trial environment, you'd be getting all these buffs from your healers and DPS, but if you're by yourself, you don't have them. So, yeah, the Iron Atronach is also an unreasonable measurement until you start doing, like, vet trial testing. With that said, in order to see where your DPS is at, the standard is using the 3 million target skeleton, which I have 6 of them up there. At some point, we can all stop and go test if you want to see where you're at right now. But the 3 million is the standard. So if you're trying to see where your DPS is at, only use that one.
Where is that guy?
So we have, actually, I can show you guys. So we have 6 of them up here. Normally there's only 1, but for this specific event, I acquired 5 more. Because we got a bunch of people. So there's 1 here, there's 1 by each pillar. There's 3 on each side, basically. Kind of spread out. When you're testing your DPS, try and make sure you're not hitting the other skeleton on the opposite side of you, because that will affect your numbers a little bit, and the other person's. But yeah, so these are the standard for if you're testing your DPS. There's also a 6 million, who is the upside down chicken over here, the brazier. Definitely being cooked a little too long for Thanksgiving. So there's 6 million target skeletons. They're exactly the same as the 3 million, except they have 3 million more health. Once your DPS starts getting really high, you want to start using the 6 million, because when your DPS gets too high, you kill the 3 million too fast, and thus you don't actually test your sustain for your build. So that's why I use the higher number target skeleton.
I'm trapped.
Oh god, where are you?
I can't get out. I'm trapped in the corner by the stairs.
Where is she? Oh, you're back there. Oh, hey. Apparently,
I can't get out.
Found a trap. There you go. Can you get out?
Oh, thank you. Shoo.
Yep.
I fell in and I couldn't get out.
Noted. Yeah, I might need to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay, anyway, so that's just how to measure your DPS. If at any point you guys would like to go up there and test, feel free. But just know the 3 million is a standard for all your testing needs. Okay, with that, I'm going to be recommending some add-ons throughout this. You don't have to use them, but feel free to write them down if you're interested. They usually will help you either keep track of your DPS or help you like practice to get certain aspects of being a DPS down. The first one is called combat metrics. Literally, when you have it installed, all you do, I don't know if you guys are watching my stream, but if you have combat metrics installed, you just do /CMX and it'll pull up all of the information about like your last battle, essentially. It's really good. It shows your DPS. It shows like your max resources, what weapons, what abilities you have are doing the most amount of damage. Once again, not required, but recommended if you want to see like a breakdown, an in-detail breakdown of your parse and where you could, and like you can compare it with other people or compare it with builds online. Ooh. Enter the metrics. Yeah, that may be a little high end, like end level stuff, but it's there for anyone who does want to. Yeah. It is there for people who do want to get like a breakdown of how they're doing, how their DPS is. Okay, so not to drone on. We covered the target skeletons and just the combat metrics recommendation. In the help and advice channel in Discord, I'm going to drop a chart, which I would like to talk about. Actually, no, we have it pinned to the general chat, don't we? But I'm going to move it anyways.
I think it's in both.
Oh, is it also in help and advice?
I think you reposted it in help and advice.
It is. Okay. If you're in the Discord, on the help and advice channel, if you go to the pins up top, if you're on computer, and scroll down a little bit. Let me delete this because those numbers aren't correct. The only pinned message that should be in there right now is the DPS targets. You can. The bottom half's a little bit outdated because they actually made the Iron Atronach easier with Markarth to DPS with. It has a bunch of new buffs that apply, so your numbers will be higher. So technically, the bottom half of this needs to be updated to be higher than is listed. If you guys can't find it, I just reposted it anyways in the help and advice channel. So typically, the 3 million dummy, that's where it shows the targets you should want to reach bare minimum before doing that level of content. And all of those are on the 3 million dummy. And hopefully, this is just laying the groundwork of kind of so you guys know when you do test where you're at, and this is what you're trying to reach. Does anyone have any questions before I actually start getting into like the meat and potatoes of this boot camp? No, anything? No. Okay, cool. It was only like 3 things, but they're important 3 things. Like have a standard goalpost of like do your test on 3 mil, see where you're at, and then as you're improving your build, you can test again later and see kind of where the improvement's been. The meat was going to be that chicken that's upside down in the fire, but I just burned it all off. So sorry, no meat available. Okay, so now we're going into the actual DPS portion. You know what? Come here, precursor. Even though his numbers are going to be off, he's still useful to smack around. All right, the very first thing that you're going to want to know is the DPS. There are 2 things called light attack weaving and animation canceling. You probably have heard those terms thrown around before. If you don't know, basically what light attack weaving is in between every ability that you do 1 light attack. It's really important for PvE DPS because that is adding a couple thousand, if not more. Actually, let me look at my last combat metrics thing. In my last, when we were hitting that target Atronach, my light attacks were my 2nd highest damaging ability of all the abilities I was using. So, honestly, it could. No, I just deleted that fight. Either way, it's a really important thing. So all it is whenever you use an ability, there is 1 second cooldown on almost all abilities in the game. And what you want to do is there's an add-on called Light Attack Helper that can help you with this, but you want to time it. So basically, here, let me throw on Rapid Strikes. It's easier to see. So Rapid Strikes, for example, if I'm smashing Rapid Strikes on this guy, if I'm just using the ability itself, I'm not actually getting as much DPS as I could do. what you want to do is you do a light attack and then the ability. Now, you're not actually going to see the full... Oh, maybe I do need to put the other guy down here. Alright, you're too weak. Be gone. You, come here. Actually, no, that might be good, because then we're not going to be in combat the whole time. So what light attack weaving is literally you're doing a light attack and then mashing the ability. And if you do it with basically every second, you're throwing in like a bunch of extra damage that you wouldn't normally be doing. That's honestly my #1 improvement you can be making to your build if you're not already doing that. I'm trying to think if I can explain it. So Light Attack Helper will break down how many light attacks you're doing a second. If you're doing 1 light attack a second, that is absolutely like machine perfect, almost impossible for a human to replicate. You want to be trying to do like 0.7 or higher, but you only really will get that metric if you have the add-on installed. Just know you're supposed to be doing light attacks, or you could be doing macros.
Do you have light attacker on your screen?
Yes. So it's on my stream. It's in the bottom right. Right now it says 0.8 light attacks a second. Yep. So I was using my spammable and light attacks right there, but you want it in between all of your abilities. So for example, light attack flurry, light attack ramming trap, light attack bar swap, hurricane, light attack quick surge, light attack volley, light attack bar swap. It's literally between like everything you do, except for maybe switching bars. You want to be throwing light attacks in.
I could see that for like a Magicka user, but for a Stam, when you have to be close, like usually you run up, right, and then you put on like I run as I'm running up. I put on buffs, but I'm not close enough to the enemy to be light attacking and buffing at the same time. Does that make sense?
Correct. So you don't really so most of your buffs, and this is kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but most of the buffs are on the back bar for your builds. So for example, mine's on my back bar bow. If you wanted to, I could be like, like light attacking as I'm running in, and then doing melee once I actually get there. But honestly, so the start
light attack with the bow with where all the buffs are. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Also, we're talking like probably 1% of the total fight time is when you're actually getting to the enemy. But typically work on it when you're actually here, like smacking away at someone.
So Urban, I was under the impression you could do a bunch of light attacks between.
Typically you want to do one in between each.
Wow.
Yeah, there's 2 ways you can do it.
I don't need to have the sore fingers.
Right. I mean, so there's 2 ways to do it. You can either mash, left click or R2 or right bumper, whatever your input device of choice is. You can either mash it and to just try and get the light attack in as soon as it's available. So for example, like you usually don't see me doing the light attacks. Like you'll see me raise my axe and then it will drop instantly. You don't wait for the animation to finish. This is me just mashing it right now. The other way is if you actually wanted to try and time it, you could use your ability, just do 1 click. As long as you're like getting as close to the end of your ability or 1 second as possible, you don't need to keep mashing it. So you don't need to break your finger doing light attacks, but that is a method to do it if you don't want to try and do like the slow, methodical way, which is probably more efficient in the end, actually. Like,
just mashing.
Yeah, if you just get like an internal like a metronome essentially, but it's like anything in the world. The more you practice it, the better at it you'll get. So you can either spam light attacks, or you can practice trying to get as close as you can to like flurry. It's a metanome. It's the true meta of. Actually, we don't really have gnomes in this game. Either way, anywho. So yeah, that's the #1 piece of advice I have if you're trying to get your DPS up, is making sure you're doing light attack weaving in between each of your abilities. So that's that. Any questions on light attack weaving? There's also animation canceling, and like you can also do like block canceling. Typically not super important. So all that basically is like, if I'm doing volley, like volley will trigger after like 0.1 second after I cast it, and then I can switch my front bar to go do something else. So like that's the full volley animation. I can do that and then switch and do other stuff. So you don't have to wait for the animation to finish to do stuff. That's all like animation canceling is basically. Just don't wait to finish, go do other things. Okay, so that's just light attack weaving. Actually, you know what? We can pause for a second. And I'll give you all like a minute if you want to try it. Yeah, basically about rad. So I have never done a build that's done like bash weaving. Some builds have like their sets on them actually give you bonuses based on bashing or like what equipment you have. But yeah, basically the same thing. Just so instead of waiting for the animation, you just use the bash to cancel whatever you're doing. But yeah, if you guys want to come up here and smack some of these 3 mils around, just work on it. So one thing that I was going to talk about later is each build, generally, 90% of the time, every build is going to have a spammable ability, and that's the ability that you're basically using when waiting for your other abilities to cool down. If you're dual wielding, it's typically flurry. If you're using 2-wield, it'd probably be uppercut. Templar, biting jabs, DK, I think it's like stone fist, something like that. But I'm going to try and not do too many class-specific things here, in like at least the main event, just because everyone's got a different class, and every class is different. It'll take us forever.
I could go over weapon types because there's only either got two-handed, dual wield, and bow.
Yep. But yeah, so in between everything you do a light attack basically, and you're not waiting for the full light attack animation. So really, all you should be seeing if you're doing it right is like your arm being raised in the air, and then you're doing an ability.
So, the thing I've been having the most trouble with is just sustaining my resources.
Gotcha.
Like stamina and magicka.
Okay. Yeah, we can probably cover that a little bit, but for right now, the things I'd probably say for helping with that is always making sure you have a potion active, because those will give you 20% more of your resource of choice. Some things will help when we're actually fighting. I don't want to get too far ahead in the schedule, but your other members of the group, like your healer and your tank, will be providing synergies more than likely, and those synergies will if you use them, you'll regain resources basically, as long as you have Undaunted leveled up.
Okay. I've actually been trying to get that leveled up because I don't actually have it at max.
It is nice, free 2%.
I have it up to where I can use the necrotic orb.
Yep. So yeah, when you're doing this, you should see your arm be raised if you're doing it right. If you're not seeing your arm like raise at all, you're probably doing 2 abilities and missing the light attacks.
You know I'm getting mad about it now.
Yeah.
That's probably enough practice. When you're done smashing your target up, we can come back down. Obviously, it's not, I don't expect anyone to get it down the first time I mention it and have you go up there and just smack a dummy. But that's basically what it is. It's putting a light attack in 1 second in between each of your abilities. Because ESO has a 1 second global cooldown on almost all abilities. Actually, I think pretty much, unless there's like a channeled ability that lasts longer or shorter for some reason, it's typically 1 second. So, if you're an absolute machine, you'd be using an ability and then do a light attack 1.001 second afterwards, and then do another ability.
If you're Templar,
actually, it's not a bad idea.
You need a dummy to practice because you can just use the spear anytime.
Yeah. Okay. I shall wait until everyone's back down here before I start covering up next stuff. I'm going to cover like abilities and builds that you should probably try and have on your tune. The assumption for this next part is you don't have someone else in the group providing these. There are always, exceptions to everything. You could be running with a DK tank who's providing major and savagery and not savagery, major brutality and major sorcery. I think those are them. Either way, this is under the assumption that you are applying all of your own buffs.
Hey, how do I make
very
my
nice.
Twilight stop?
Apparently, as a hotkey, you're supposed to be able to assign.
Yeah. Point at your
what you
target, and I think it's Y and right click.
Y and white.
Yeah, you have to hold down. I think it's Y, or maybe it's T. It's been a while. Sorry. It's one of
You
those.
can also go to your character menu and right click on the active effect for
Oh, and remove the effect.
and
Okay.
Oh,
it
you know,
unsummons them.
that's actually a really good idea. If everyone would not mind unsummoning their combat pet, at least temporarily until we start testing stuff. Because I'm painfully aware that my clan fear will go and start attacking things. Okay, cool. So that's light attack weaving. It's literally just trying to get as many. It should almost be as close to a 1-to-1 ratio as possible. Like, you're never gonna reach 1 because that's inhuman. But you want to be trying to reach like 0.7 probably at the very least. And anything like 0.8, 0.9 is considered really good. But the closer you are to 1, the better. All right, so moving on a little bit.
Really low, like 0.15. Like, are you just going too fast?
Probably. So there are ways to get higher than 1 light attack a second. There's some armor sets that increase to the speed of your light attacks and things like that. But yeah, you're probably missing casting an ability if your light attack's going higher than 1.
I got way lower, 0.1.
If it's 0.1, that's just getting practice in of trying to weave. Because with very few exceptions, every ability has a 1-second cooldown, and light attacks don't follow the same cooldown as that. So you should be able to do like flurry light attack, 1 second, flurry light attack, 1 second, flurry light attack, and then just repeat that as an example.
So when you do it, are you like you do your ability and then you immediately do the light attack?
So at least mentally when I do it, I do a light attack and then I do the ability is how typically it will go. So like for example, if I'm hitting him, yep. So like
Bang, bang.
light attack flurry, light attack flurry,
Wait a second.
light attack flurry.
It's like boom boom 1/1000, boom boom 1/1000, boom boom 1/1000, like that.
Yeah, and if you're doing it like if you're hitting light attack like too early, and you're not mashing it, you may just miss it completely and go do another flurry.
Right, and I've been doing well because I've been doing okay. I don't want to say well, but I've been doing okay. But I have been mashing it like crazy, and I'm getting like a really fast finger.
Yeah.
But I'm getting a very sore joint.
right. So yeah, you don't need to mash it. If you get the timing correct, you can just press it once, do an ability, press it once, do an ability.
Yeah, that would be better because my fingers are getting sore.
That's fair.
Gotta get a rhythm going.
Okay, for everyone down here, covering some of the buffs you should have. So honestly, looking up an online build isn't a bad thing to do. It's perfectly fine to try and like make your own builds and get them to work. Just know that when you start getting into the harder vet content, sometimes you do have to sort of align what you're doing with the meta of the game. But as a general rule, everyone should have some source of applying the buffs I'm about to mention. Typically, Major Brutality, if you're spam based. I think maybe Zoli and Zen are the only Magicka based DPS in here right now. But for theirs, it's Major Sorcery, I believe. So you should have a source for applying those. Most classes have a way to apply it. DKs are nice, and they actually apply it to everyone in the group. But assuming you may not have a DK, since other people may not run DK tanks or even use that ability, have a way to give it to yourself. If you don't, as Zen just mentioned, you can get them through potions. There's player-crafted potions that can apply Major Brutality, Major Savagery, and typically Stamina Recovery. But you want to try and get Major Brutality, or have a source of that. Major Sorcery, and Minor Force are 3 of the ones that you want to try and have. For Stamina Tunes, because I believe most of us are Stamina Tunes, Minor Force you get from using Rearming Trap from the Fighter's Guild skill line. That's why almost all builds you see online have this guy. because when he
Which
procs,
Which guy?
so the morph is called a rearming trap.
What's the difference between that
Oh,
and
sorry.
barb?
Disregard that. Barb trap is the one that you want.
Okay.
The base is trap beast. Either I'm thinking of the other morph or they changed the name at some point. I don't know. But either way, barb trap is the one that you want. When it triggers for 18 seconds, you get minor force, 10% more crit damage.
So that's why it's on everything.
Yup, indeed.
And then as a fighter guild ability, you also get the increase in damage from it being on your bar.
True. So there's definitely ways that you can adjust builds online to fit your needs. For example, my Stamsork, I built it to be a super lazy Stamsork. I typically get about 34,000 on a 3 mil test and 6 mil tests. But I don't use the potions. Actually, I use major savagery potions, but I use crit surge for major brutality instead. So you can adjust them to do what you need. And you don't have to follow them exactly. But as long as you have a way of applying that, you'll be fine. Those are the 3 main ones. Some classes don't have a source, and that's why you can go through potions if you want. Just potions can be expensive. And typically, I just use like trash stamina potions or tri-stat potions from the crown, like daily giveaways, your daily rewards, blah blah blah. Unless I'm running really hard content, because they get expensive. Let's see. Major savagery. So I think the Fighters Guild, Hunters. What's it called? You could slot Expert Hunter. That would give it to you, and then Mage Light I think gives it to you for Magicka users. But once again, if you don't want to take up an ability slot, slotting those yourself, you can use the potion. Does the same thing. Just for what you build for. I personally hate using potions unless I have to, because they're consumables, and I want to hoard my resources. But that's just me. In addition, when you're working on your build, typically every class is going to have what's called a spammable. That's literally the ability you're alternating. You're doing light attack spammable, and repeating that until one of your dots and buffs are cooled down. So for example, on my back bar, on my Stamsork, I got Crit Surge, Hurricane, Volley. What I'll do after that is basically you'll be using your spammable and light attacks until your buffs need to be reapplied, and then I'll go back, and reapply them. And I'll go back to using my spammable back and forth. Stamsorks are particularly crazy, and I think Stamplars are the same. If you actually wrote down their rotations, it would be like 15 seconds of me doing nothing but my spammable, and then swapping in doing like volley and reapplying all my stuff, and then going back to doing 15 seconds of my spammable.
Yeah.
So make sure you have one on your bar. Uppercut for two-hander is so historically it's not been a great spammable, but they've been doing work lately to try and make two-handed a little more viable in PvE. So if you didn't want to use uppercut,
What about Brawler?
so Brawler, I believe, is more of an AoE cone in front of you.
Mm.
Let me see. Actually, I don't think I even have two-handed.
Brawler as your spammable.
Let me see. I don't even have two-handed on this character to check it out. That's a good question, actually. You know what? Let me go. So two-handed PvE build. See what's recommended. Oh, that's lovely. All right. Well, the first build I brought up was a DK who doesn't even use the two-handed. Anyways, so typically, even though I can't look at the Brawler skill line, I'm going to assume because it's an AoE, it does less damage single target than Uppercut does. And single target's really kind of what you want in PvE.
Okay.
I think it's also going to depend on the content you're running and what you're doing it for. You can use Brawler as a spammable, especially if you're doing like an arena or something.
Mm. So it's possible. I just can't really comment if it's recommended because I've never made actually a two-handed PvE build because back in my day, They were horrible.
I have seen solo builds that use Brawler as a spammable.
Yeah, for solo, but that also gives you a damage shield, so you just don't have to worry about even healing, because you just constantly replenishing your damage shield with Brawler.
That's probably going to lead into one of the other topics a little later. I mean, it's not a bad thing to consider. Actually, you know what? I don't want to get ahead of myself. So yeah, typically you will have a spammable. Your spammable is something that does a decent amount of damage and doesn't cost too much resources for you to use. Especially if you're having issues with sustain, it could be that whatever you're using as a spammable maybe costs too much. Or there could be some other issues going on. But you'll have one ability that will be the ability to use mainly. It's like your main skill damage bar or damage ability. It's what you use the most. That's the easiest way to describe it. Also, every build, you basically want to have an execute ability. What an execute ability is it's basically an ability that does more damage the lower the health of the enemy is. And typically, when you're fighting a boss, somewhere between 20 to 25%, it changes based on your build and the boss. You're going to switch over to using your execute. So you won't use your regular spammable anymore. Now your execute becomes your spammable. And you're going to be doing, for dual wield, it's whatever this thing's called. Whirling Blades.
And then for two-handed, there's an
should be Executioner, I believe.
Slash, which
two-handed or reverse slash.
Literally called Executioner.
Yep. I think reverse slice turns it into an AoE as well. But yeah, one of those two for two-handed. There's also some class-specific executes. I think Nightblades have some. So it will depend on your class which one you use. But always make sure you have a spammable. Always make sure you have an execute.
What's interesting about Executioner is it applies at 50% health instead of 20%.
So the reason that you usually wait until about like 20-25% because even though you start getting bonus damage from these abilities at that high or at those levels, because Whirling Blades is the same thing, like deals up to 100% more damage to enemies with less than 50% health. Your spammable doesn't become better than your execute doesn't become better than your spammable until you're at like the 20-25% health range of the boss. So typically you don't touch your execute until you're at that stage, because that's when you get the most amount of damage out of it. Most bang for your buck, if you will. Typically executes cost more than your spammable will. So that's kind of why you wait.
What if it costs less?
I mean, it may not do as much damage then. So like, where is it? Like Whirling Blades, costs, well, for dual wield at least, Whirling Blades cost like 500 more stamina than Rapid Strikes does. And Rapid Strikes does more damage than Whirling Blades until you hit that point of like 20-25%.
Yeah, the spammable, at least for the build, I'm looking at a Stone Giant, which uses 2,000, but then Reverse Slice only uses 1,600.
Gotcha. So the main benefit for DKs and using Stone Giant is it buffs the entire group DPS as well.
Yeah,
so that why you might be sacrificing a little bit of damage and sustain for like better group output.
But then I could start alternating. Once it's below 50, you could also start alternating Stone Giant, Reverse Slice, Stone Giant, Reverse Slice, because that takes time for the stagger to break off.
That's true. So what I'd say is probably go find a 3-mil and start testing it and see which gives you better numbers in the end. That's going to be your like for sure concrete evidence one way or another of if what you're trying to do works. So yeah, whenever you make any changes to your build, I highly recommend just finding the closest 3-mil and just smacking away at it. Just to see kind of how it's working out. Oh yeah, so you'll hear things, especially in builds, called rotations. Just to cover it real quick, all a rotation is planning out how to keep all your buffs up. My Stam Stork, super easy rotation. Oh no, I didn't want to bring you out. Go away. Yeah, super easy. Literally on my back bar, I do like Hurricane, Volley, Crit Surge, and I'm on my front bar the entire time. And then, actually, oh yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. So there's an add-on called Action Duration Reminder. That's my third recommended add-on for anyone who wants to mess with add-ons. If you're looking at my stream, what Action Duration Reminder does is it adds numbers at the bottom of my screen telling me like each second how long these things are going to be lasting for. And there's also another add-on I use for my UI where I can put those numbers on the left side of my screen. If you see, that actually gives me like closer to where I'm looking. I can see when things are going to run out.
What's that add-on? The one to the side.
I think that one's actually part of LUI, which is the UI add-on.
I'm using AUI.
Ah, gotcha.
I
So there may be other things that do it. I think Bandit may have like a version to add things like that.
Yes.
But dealer's choice, really. Whichever ones you can find that works out for you. I like this one, yeah, just because it lets me see when these ones are running out. You can choose which ones show up there and which ones don't. But yeah, it literally that's all a rotation is find a way to keep all of your buffs up while like in between using your spammable until your buffs need to be reapplied. That's all it is. That's all rotation is really. If you let something run out, then it's not doing damage. So goal is to keep those up. Ultimate usage. So this one's a little more advanced. Typically in that content, the tank will definitely should be running aggressive Warhorn. Sometimes the healer will also run aggressive Warhorn. It's kind of a contentious subject on if both need to be doing it in 4-man content. But basically, if you have your ultimate up, try and time it around when the tank has his ultimate up. Because what happens is when the tank uses aggressive Warhorn, everyone in the group gets major force, which gives you an additional 20% crit damage. So if everyone can time their ults and their dots, well not dots, but their ults around when the tank uses aggressive Warhorn, like the tank will call it, and then everyone drops their ultimate. That is the optimal way of using them, because then your ultimates are getting buffed even higher by what the tank did. Just a little mention in there, and something to think about when you're going through dungeons. If you're going through pugs and doing random dungeons, it's random. You never know what the tank's going to be running. The tank could be running like, I don't know, 2 set. Like, the tank could be running really bad sets and not be providing any group utility whatsoever.
Might not even be.
It happens.
The tank Rad ended up with that wasn't a tank.
Yeah.
Some naked guy with a resto staff.
Yep. So everything I'm saying is with the assumption that you're going to be running with a group that knows what they're doing in vet content. Yeah, that's typically what happened, and you can hear it too. If you see like the first time the tank used Warhorn, then you know he has it, and you can just wait for him to pop Warhorn again. But if you're ever in a group with me or someone else as a tank, usually we'll call out Warhorn's up, and then we'll pop it. Warhorn takes like 250 ult, I think. So a lot of times, even with all the tank's bonuses to regeneration, it'll be up after the DPS get theirs up. Okay. Any questions before I move on to the next part about buffs you should be applying, abilities, executes, add-ons, ultimates? No? Everything straightforward, or am I just rambling on and nothing's useful?
I'm taking notes.
Ah, gotcha.
Everything's useful. You've been doing great.
Thank you, Burberry.
I already learned I don't need to give myself tendinitis in order to play.
Oh, that is true. Not required. Now, there are some builds out there that you can do a 1-bar build, which means you never go onto your back bar, and you can pull really high numbers. Typically, those are Stamplars with unique sets. Unless you are specifically going for that kind of build and have the numbers to like back it up, sorta, you're gonna have to be using back bars. Now, with few exceptions, the back bar is gonna be where all your dots and buffs are at. Not all of them, but typically that you don't stay on your back bar for most of the fight. For my build in particular, my back bar has Volley, Crit Surge, and Hurricane on. And that's all I used on my back bar, and then I'm right back onto my front bar afterwards. So, while you have 2 bars, the back one just literally the back one is there to support your front bar. So volley, for example, I can cast volley and then switch, and then yeah, my dot is still going to be applied as I'm doing everything else on my front bar. So then the only time I go back on my back bar is when volley runs out. I apply it, hurricane, go on my front bar, and then continue on from there. So I highly suggest on your back bar, like that's how you have your setup loadout. How you have your build set up. Excuse me. Just piece of advice, right, for everyone. If you're only using 1 bar, you're holding you're tying a hand behind your back, like you're missing out on 5 abilities. Even that one single bar Stamplar build, the guy even says, yeah, this could be better if you use 2 bars, but if you only want 1 bar, here's a build you can try. So, highly recommend. Make sure you're using both your bars to a great effect. The back bar, all you need to do is, I recommend a bow, personally, just because volley is great. And if you ever go and get the Maelstrom bow, either normal or perfected, it is absolutely amazing. You'll probably see like 3,000 to 4,000 damage per second increase just from using the Maelstrom bow in your back bar. It is great. Sorry, question?
No, I just made a statement. That's something I need to get.
Yeah. I already talked about Action Duration Minder. I recommend it, especially like you don't technically need any of these add-ons. They're just there to help support you, especially as you're getting used to your build. Like I don't need Action Duration Reminder in the bottom right. But highly recommend it if you're trying to get your light attacks down up to like 0.9 light attacks a second when you're doing your parses. The also general disclaimer: doing a parse, while it's a good like milestone benchmark for you, don't be surprised if you don't hit that when you're actually in a dungeon. Because when you're in a dungeon, you're going to be having mechanics, you're going to be dodge rolling, you're going to be moving around, you're going to be doing lots of other things. And your light attacks per second aren't going to be, because the boss is going to be flying around doing random things. Your light attack's not going to be 0.9 a second in the dungeon. Well, it's kind of like practicing like you play. If you can perfect it outside of the dungeon, when you are in the dungeon and when you're in those optimal conditions, you're going to be getting the most damage. So don't be disheartened if you don't see what you're getting on a 3 mil in an actual dungeon itself. Also, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. AoE DPS doesn't count. So if you have like Hurricane and all your Whirlwind and stuff on, you go in a dungeon into a bunch of mobs and your DPS jumps up to like 50,000. It's because you're hitting 10 things at like 10 times the targets. So it's a feel good number, but you want to be focusing on single target and on a 3 mil. So if you're trying to like figure out your DPS, your DPS is what you get on the 3 mil single target. There are some classes out there that are just naturally really AoE based. Stamsorks are one of them. Like between Crit Surge and Volley, like you just do a lot of damage AoE by default. Templar or Stamplars with their jabs, but you want to focus and do your testing on a single target when you're getting your numbers. Okay, sorry, I got on a tangent there. So, moving on, mechanics. It is really important for a DPS to be able to deal with mechanics, especially in vet dungeons. And those mechanics are kind of, they'll change depending on the dungeon itself. But typically, it's staying out of the poop, as Berber likes to say. So anything on the ground, any red AoE is always watch your feet and where you're standing. Because if you're getting hit or you're dying or you're like triggering mechanics, that's kind of putting more pressure on everyone else in the group to make up for it, to either heal you or pick you up off the ground. When you could just avoid that by not standing in the poop in the first place. And that's not to call anyone out. That's just when you're doing vet dungeons, that's an important part of it. Is like making sure you're not taking unnecessary damage. In addition, we were talking earlier about sustain. Typically, the healers and sometimes the tank will be throwing synergies out From healers, that's usually going to be if their Templar or the Shard will come down, or they'll be running orbs, which you'll see like a slow-moving orb. Make sure to grab those if you need them for the resources. A few exceptions. A lot of times, the shards that get thrown down. Do we have any Templars? Oh, Ben left. Oh, he's a Necromancer anyways. Either way, when you see shards come down, yeah, those things. A lot of times, those will be meant for the tank specifically, because the healer can target them for where the tank's at, to help the tank with his sustain, or their sustain, because they're going to be using lots of stamina while blocking, and they don't recover stamina. So shards are important for the tank. The takeaway here is pay attention to what the synergy is before you use it. So these balls right here, thank you, Burberry. These balls, everyone can use the ball. They changed it, so literally all of us can use this synergy at once, if need be, and everyone can use it once. I believe there is a 15-second cooldown on any specific synergy before you can use it again. So only grab it when you need it. Yep, there you go. But see, like, everyone should be able to run up and hit, like, Healing Combustion and use these things. Yeah.
It's 20 seconds, I believe.
Oh, be quiet, Precursor. Also, if you're playing with a Stam Sork, this thing right here,
What's
if you ever seen Atronach, this
this
Atronach synergy is meant for other DPS. So if you're doing the 2-man, you see the Atronach come down, you're supposed to grab it, not anyone else, because when you use it, it increases your damage done by 25% for X amount of seconds. I forget how long it is. I could look it up, but I'm lazy. So pay attention to the synergies and kind of know which ones are meant for you, which ones are meant for the tank, is the takeaway of this part. However, you can use synergies if you're running low on resources to regain resources.
What's the Atronach called?
So that's the Storm Atronach. Does it have an actual name? It's just Greater Storm Atronach. I forget what the synergy. Oh, the synergy is called Charged Lightning.
Major.
And I lied. It gives you Major Berserk, but it's only 10% more damage for 8 seconds. That is because they nerfed Berserk in general, unfortunately.
What's the difference between the gold ball and the blue ball that I'm seeing here?
Oh, you can use either. So they're
ball
two
is
different
healing.
morphs of the ball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can actually run to the gold ball if you need healing, if you're far away.
Okay, and the blue ball is Stam and Magicka?
So they'll all
Blue
regain
ball does
some.
damage.
Use them.
They'll both give you the same amount of resources back, though.
Oh, okay.
And I believe you can use both a gold ball and a blue ball because they're two separate synergies.
Okay.
So a lot of times in trials, one healer each will be running one color of the ball.
Okay.
But in 4-man content, you're gonna have one ball color, and you're gonna like it.
Okay. Okay.
So that's synergies. Just on the side note, and mind you, this is Stam Sork specific, but I'm a Stam Sork, so I'm going to talk about it. When you use that Greater Atronach synergy, because it gives you 10% more damage done, you can wait for it to drop, take the synergy, and then cast your ultimate. And then you're getting 20% major force from the tank, and 10% more damage from the Stam Sork, and your damage will be much higher in said dungeon.
Can you do that again? The greater, because I see the little. I sometimes when I'm in a group, I see the Atronach, but I don't know what to do with it.
Gotcha. I will have to build up my ultimate again, which is like
fine.
170. So I'm just gonna keep hitting this while I talk, but then I can summon it and you can look at it. Okay, so that's synergies. Now, as far as speaking of resources, if you're a DPS, on average, you're going to want your health to be 17,500. No lower, no higher. Now, if you're super elite meta in the game, you can try and go lower. I don't advise it, especially if you're dying in dungeons. Now, the reason for that number in particular is because that's the amount of health where you can take a heavy attack from like the average mob in a dungeon and still survive. And you don't need more than that. If you're doing more than that, then that's technically resources you could be putting towards your like max stamina or max magicka, which would be giving you more DPS. Does everyone get that? Any questions? That's just like the advised number.
And that's taking food into account, by the way.
Yes. Yep. That's end. You're in the dungeon numbers.
And presumably your attributes are all Stam, right? as a stamina?
So I would say get to 17,500 health, and then put everything else wherever into your max resource from there. So like, if for some reason you don't you're a little bit under, you could either change your enchantments around, you could change your attributes around if you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But the number you're trying to reach is 17,500 for PvE. Anything higher than that, and like I said, you could be putting that into resources instead, which would be increasing your damage done.
Is that in the 17 is before or after the food?
After. So like, when you're in the dungeon ready to go, start hitting on the first mobs and bosses, it should be at 17.5.
And that's after CP 300 too, right?
Right.
Yes, after
Right,
CP 300, after your food's active, after any buffs you got. There's a few things that could help get that number higher, but while helpful, they are typically I don't want to say crutches, but they're basically a crutch. if you have a tank who's running Ebon Armory, it gives everyone 1,000 more health, but you shouldn't need that. So while nice to have, 17.5 is all you need.
Okay.
Anything else is just kind of making up for like getting hit more or standing in mechanics, which is, as DPS, things we try not to do in the first place. So it gives you a safety net, but the goal is to try and prepare yourself to not need the safety net. Oh, my favorite. So, next thing I have on my list of things to talk about is penetration. And I don't mean that in any kind of giggity way, but there's a lot of math involved. And I'm going to try and keep it super simple, because doing too much math in MMOs is how you get people to, get glossy eyes and roll their eyes. Burberry, where's our conversation? Here. You. And. Alright, so I'm going to post something in the Help and Advice channel in the Discord. So with the latest update, they actually changed some of the penetration numbers around in the game. Now, when you're building your character, with few exceptions, and necromancers are almost always the exception in some way or another, you want to focus on penetration until you hit the penetration cap. And then after that, you focus on crit damage and crit chance. 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, you're going to be getting more DPS focusing on penetration versus raw crit and weapon damage. Well, that's not to say go into a dungeon with max crit and only like 200 weapon damage. You're still not going to do any damage. But how the numbers work out is that breaks down magicka and stamina, or magicka and physical and magic resistance, spell resistance. That's the word. What you need to take away from this is the tank is actually going to be providing most of your pen debuffs. The magic number, the number that you all need to remember, if you're trying to do math for this penetration, is every NPC in this game has 18,200 resistance. Very few exceptions. I think some of the arenas have an exception. But anything you're going to be running in 4-man content and 12-man trials, 18,200. Don't even worry about the exceptions. You're not even going to need to like really pay attention to them.
Where do we find our pen on our character?
They don't tell you. Because ESO is a wonderful, helpful game that gives all information to players. So if you have combat metrics, that can tell you after you do a parse what your max pen is. Other than that,
there's also an add-on called Pen Test that's really handy. And if you're a light cloth or light armor user, you automatically get pen from your 5-piece bonus.
So there's a lot of sources of pen out there. As you said, if you look in the light armor skill tree area, you get some penetration just from wearing light armor. You get some penetration from a CP bonus in the CP tree. No comment, Zen. No comment. However, because there's a lot of math that goes behind this, the easiest way to remember is if you're running with a tank who knows what they're doing, they're going to have a Crusher enchantment on their back bar. And what that means is, bare minimum, the tank is going to be providing 10,500 of the penetration that you guys need as DPS. So if they know what they're doing, they're going to be running Crusher. If the tank is super awesome and knows what they're doing, they're going to be running Torig's Pact and Crusher, which gives you even more. So the magic number is, assuming those two things are true, is you need to provide about 7,000 penetration by yourselves as a DPS. Now, the goal is to get to that 7,000 and not a point higher. So the actual number is, if they're not running Torig's Pact, you need 7,600. If they are, you need 7,100. Those are the actual numbers. If you go over those numbers, you may be over-penning, and if you're over-penetrating, then it's just wasted DPS. You're not getting any benefit from it. So if you're writing notes, those are the numbers. You're basically trying to reach 7,600. Unless you're running an optimized group, then you want 7,100. I'll tell you right now, I run Torig's Pact on my tank, so you can try and go for 7,100, and you should be fine. This is where it's kind of good to know what group you're running in. If you're running with a Stamsork who's using crystal weapons, they provide 1,000 extra pen to the entire group. If your tank's running Tremor Scale, that's 2,400. So it's kind of hard to know exactly what you need. But if you're running with Pugs, just shoot for 7,000, and that'll be fine. The only time we'd probably super prepare is if we're trying to do... so I believe Noxious Breath applies the same debuff that the tank does with his Pierce Armor. Yep. So Noxious... It's not to say Noxious Breath is bad, because Noxious Breath can be good for providing AoE debuff, where the tank is doing single target for like a boss and such. You can also get it from Caltrops from the Assault Tree, I believe. Also gives an AoE Major Breach. But yeah, it doesn't... You can only have one source of a debuff, so it doesn't really stack with the tanks. One that tank is giving. But yeah, so 7,000 is roughly what you're shooting for. That is assuming you're running in Pugs and not super optimized groups. So unless you have an add-on, the only way for you to really figure out your pen is to go through and add up all your sources of it. Most of us, I believe, are stamina DPS. So typically yours are going to come from either sharpened on your weapons. Where is it? There's a champion point bonus that you get. Where are you? Where'd it go? Lost it. Do we not, is there no passive anymore? Or, increasing crit? There's still precise... Oh no, you get it from precise strikes for weapon crit.
Yeah.
Okay, nope, sorry, it was in the blue tree. I was looking in the wrong tree, that's
Ritual.
why. Yep, so in the ritual, when you have 30 points in there, you get 3% more weapon crit. And opposite side in the apprentice for Magicka users, you get 3% spell crit when you got 30 in. So you get 3% from that. The rest is kind of where you try and get it from. So sharpen on your weapons. You could use the Lover Mundus Stone if you need to. There is a champion point tree that gives you more penetration. But just be very careful that you're not overpenning, because that's all just wasted damage.
I'm pretty sure it's also in the ritual.
What's that?
I'm pretty sure that one's also the ritual.
Oh, yes. So yeah, the ritual is going to be all of your like stamina based abilities generally.
Perk.
Yep. So there's Thermatology that applies to both, but yeah, the ritual will be your stamina, physical piercing, your crit damage with stamina abilities and such. But yeah, in general, 7,000 is the magic number in an unoptimized group. If you're running with a Stamsork, you only need 6,000. Your tank has Tremor Scale, you only need like 5,000. With that said, if you need help getting to the pen cap, you can use the Lover Mundus. If you're already at the pen cap, I'm going to be throwing some more numbers out there for anyone who's taking notes. If you have 48% crit chance, you're going to want to use the Shadow, which increases your crit damage. If you are under 48% crit chance, you're going to want to use the Thief. I think that's the one. Yeah, Thief.
Yes.
Where is it? That sounds here. Okay, yeah. So Thief, if you're under 48%. If you're above 48%, you want to use the Shadow for more crit damage. If you're not at the pen cap, you're going to want to use the Lover. That's the hierarchy. Are you at the pen cap? No, use the Lover. If you are, and you're over 48% crit chance, do more crit damage. If you're not 48% yet, do more crit chance. That is 9 times out of 10. That is the hierarchy you're going to want to use. With few class exceptions, necromancers. Yes, Rad.
The pen helper add-on, when I first installed it, said I had 18,200 pen, but then when I started combat, it dropped like a lot. Is it when I'm in combat and doing damage that requires
It may be that. So when you're out of combat, it had it higher.
Yeah, 18,200. It was like maxed out when I was out of combat. And as soon as I went into combat,
it may. So I haven't used that add-on, so I couldn't say for sure, but it may just be it doesn't actually get an accurate number until you're hitting something, because it may be waiting for you to apply buffs and debuffs.
That's correct. It only, or at least I only use the numbers that are occurring when I'm actually in combat with something. Otherwise, it's off.
okay.
So yeah, that should tell you. So the goal goal number 1 for DPS, hit the pen cap, and then start worrying about crit. When it comes to like Munda Stones, especially. You should be able to hit it without because they changed how it works, there's a lot more things that apply debuffs now. You should be able to hit it without too much effort, but you want to make sure you are at least hitting it. You know what, here, let me... Here, Burberry, I'm going to copy what we were talking about and just paste it.
Okay.
Into a device under that, and hopefully people can figure those two things there. There we go. Yeah, so it's one of those things where if you haven't actually been trying to build for it, you may not be at the pen that you need to be at. Typically, the ways you take care of it are using a sharpened weapon, possibly using the Lover Mundus. Honestly, if you use Lover Mundus and maybe one other source of pen, you can probably run the crit chance or crit damage Mundus instead. But the important thing is trying to reach it. It is true. Yeah, so the Lover is 4,000, about 4,500. So Rad, if you just switch to the Lover, you're going to be getting, about 7,000. 12,000 in combat. If you're both using the same add-on, it may be too much, because the tank's providing 10,000, so you're getting up to 22,000. You're overpenning by 5,000, which is bad. Yes, that's too much. So this is where I forget. Does the 3 mil provide major breach or major fracture?
Nope.
Do you know?
It does
okay.
Not.
So this is where why the numbers are a little off when you're using the trial Iron Atronach, is because the trial Iron Atronach applies all these debuffs for you that the tank would be giving you. So it may be more accurate to what you'd be doing in a trial. But you're not going to be getting all of what the trial Atronach's giving you, and the 3 mil doesn't give you those buffs. So that's why the numbers are different, if anyone was wondering. That covers Munda Stones and Pen Cap, and health and synergies. Does anyone have any questions before I cover the last little couple bits that I have? Yep. So Rad, that's good. So the only thing you'd be worried about is if you're running with a tank who was using Torix Pact and Tremor Scale or something and a Stamsork, suddenly you might be overpenning a little bit. But that's something that you can probably correct fairly easily. if you're coordinating with your group. And mind you, it probably won't matter that much on base game vet dungeons, but these are all steps you guys can take to like improve your DPS to try and be getting into like the 25,000, 30,000 range on a 3 mil, and that's kind of where you want to try and get to, if you can. So the target numbers we put said for veteran version 1 is like 10k DPS. That's like bare minimum on a 3 mil. And 15k for version 2. That's like Spindle Clutch 2, Darkshade Caverns 2. Veteran DLCs, you want 25k. I'd say that's probably what you want to try and reach for. The goal is to get up to 25k on a 3 mil before doing veteran DLCs. And obviously, the higher you get that, the easier the base game dungeons will get for you.
So getting to 25,
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking about raw skill, or are we talking about having special sets of armor to help you get there?
Both. So working on light attack weaving will be a significant improvement, but it will only get you so far. The rest of that is probably going to be what your abilities are and what sets you're using. Now, mind you, you don't have to go and use the super meta end game sets that you farm from trials. I mean, saying that on my Stamsork right now, which I built this Stamsork for arenas. Like this Stamsork is built for Maelstrom and I guess the new one that's named that I can never pronounce. For very help.
Oh, I wasn't listening. What?
Vadishran?
Oh, Vadishran? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so my character is built for Vadishran and Maelstrom. I'm using New Moon Acolyte, but I'm also using Vicious Ophidian, which is from a trial. So there may be some trial in your future, but Deadly is a popular set to run because it gives you 20% more damage on your dots. I'd say if you're a stamina character and you're trying to get to like vet tier damage, Hunding's Rage and Briarheart are two sets that you can get fairly easily. Hunding's Rage being craftable, Briarheart being overworld. But yeah, that's a really good combo for Sam DPS, like entry level, until you start trying to farm some of the more advanced stuff. Building off of Burberry's comment in text chat, monster sets. Currently, Celine's is the best Stam DPS monster set you can have.
And it's
trying
easy
to get that
too.
one.
Yeah, it's easy to get. Its base game doesn't require any DLCs. You just need keys to try and get the shoulder. Velodrefs may not be a bad one to have in your pocket, because that used to be the best, and sometimes they keep balancing things back and forth, and it may become good again. But Celine's is easy to get. Highly recommend everyone has that. If you're Magicka DPS,
Charlie.
Whatever the Daedroth set is, I forget. Technically, I think like Zons is the super meta endgame one? Question mark, maybe? I don't Magicka DPS that often.
The
Zon for Magicka.
Maw of the Infernal is the one that gets you the Daedroth.
Okay. Yeah, so Maw of the Infernal is pretty good for people who are trying to do Magicka DPS. Also a base game one, pretty easy to get. Yeah, if you're trying to get super endgame, Zons is technically the best, but that's a DLC set, so just get Maw of the Infernal and you'll be fine. But yeah, recommend Celine's for anyone who needs a monster set for their PvE soon.
I got the shoulders. I just need the helmet.
No, that's easy enough to farm. Just gotta do vet. Celine's Web? Celine's Web. That's what it's called. Alright, thank you all for putting up my rambling. That's actually all like the actual notes I've written down. For anyone else who does a lot of vet tier content, feel free to chime in if you feel like I missed something. Does anyone have any questions?
Tell us about infused versus bloodthirsty.
Oh, why would you do that? Okay,
I'm sorry,
so
disregard.
no, she is right. So for your jewelry, typically jewelry will come with max stamina. If you're doing DPS set, infuse and bloodthirsty beat robust at any time. There's some debate on Bloodthirsty versus Infused, but technically Bloodthirsty is still better than Infused. The nice thing about Infused, though, is you can change your enchantments and it will still be useful, versus the... blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to think. The actual math turns out that Bloodthirsty becomes better Infused at like 68% of the enemy's health lost. So Infused is better up front, but Bloodthirsty is better in the back, which is what you want, because then typically bosses and things will get more dangerous towards the end of the fight, so you want to be doing more damage. I don't really think we need to try and sell Infused. I use Infused for PvP, but Bloodthirsty is what you want for DPS. If you're trying to like squeak out more improvement on your build. Oh, excuse me. Drink more water. I need a throat lozenge. I do recommend, we got 6 3mm practice dummies up the stairs. I highly recommend you go and see where you're at right now, DPS wise. At the very least, if you do that and you kill it all the way through, you'll know where you started for when you're trying to improve it, to get ready for the event going on. That's not my clan fear attacking that, is it? Clan fear, go away. Yeah, no, it was. All right.
So what exactly is the event that's coming up, and are we gonna, as a guild, are we doing any events around that event?
That's actually a good question. So I got the event actually listed in the news channel if you want to see the actual website. Essentially, when you kill the final boss in a dungeon, you're going to be getting special event loot boxes.
Okay.
If you do them on vet hard mode, you have a chance of earning unique opal monster mask style pages, which are just kind of unique purple, gold, shiny, various like cosmetic drops. Probably will be able to sell them if you don't want them yourself. But however, opening those boxes, I think they have additional Undaunted keys in them, or a chance to get them. But it's your typical ESO event stuff. You'll get a box with event-specific loot in it. Let me see. It's all four-player dungeon-based stuff. When you defeat a dungeon's final boss, you'll get an Undaunted Roar box. You get a special one for the first one each day. You also get a reward box from doing that solo Undaunted daily quest. If you want to try and get like the special opal things, that's where you gotta start trying to prepare for like the veteran hard mode dungeons. The good news is they only have certain dungeons that this applies to, and only one of them is a DLC dungeon. The rest of them are like Spindle Clutch 2, Dire Frost Keep, Spindle Clutch 1, like Crypt of Hearts 1. Like relatively super easy ones, but you're still going to need to prepare. At least get up to like 15-20k DPS if you want an easy time at doing them and not have it be like a headache.
It's not giving me my numbers.
It'll appear in the text chat usually, but you might still be counted as being in combat.
Yeah, it looks like it. So I can't get the numbers on the one I did because I'm still in combat.
Gotcha. Yeah, it might have been. It may be because we're in a group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. As much as I like seeing all your pretty names on the left side of my screen, I'm disbanding the group.
How rude.
Indeed. Okay, hopefully now you won't count as being in combat with other people's target skeletons. Sorry, that was one thing I did not think about.
There it goes. 13.8k.
Yeah.
Well, you might want to,
Yeah, you can try that again. Because a lot of times it will count like the off time. We'll take numbers down. Oh, also I highly recommend killing the target dummy from start down to 0 to get like the most accurate number. Also, it will test the sustain on your build. If you're running out of resources, feel free to throw like a heavy attack in. All your attacks shouldn't be heavy attacks though. Light attacks on average will do more damage versus doing heavy attacks. Also, there is a free target skeleton if anyone wants to make use of it. So speaking of builds, people can run. You can run basically whatever you want as long as you're getting the numbers that you're trying to reach. Essentially, there's Hunting's Rage and Briarheart is a really popular combo. I highly recommend trying to get either at least a regular Maelstrom bow. We can always do like, if anyone's interested, we can always do like a guild event where we all just go into Maelstrom together and just like stream it or into our chat if you don't want to be bored while farming, or just would like advice on how to complete each arena.
Done Maelstrom before. Haven't gotten any of the.
What?
I think all I've gotten is
PvE guy.
stats and other stuff I don't really use.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it is rough. You can get the bow on like the very first drop and be done with it, or it could take you 30 times.
The Maelstrom's axe
Mhm.
and the Maelstrom's lightning staff.
Oh, speaking of, we were talking about enchantments a little bit. Typically, all divines is what you're gonna want on your DPS. There's not really much use for the other traits. We were talking about using like cleave to get damage shields and such. You typically as a DPS you should be trying to go as whatever gives you the most damage, because your healer and your tank should be worrying about keeping you alive. Now, somewhat hypocritical of me, I run Crit Surge because when running with pugs and on vet content, it lets me heal myself. Typically, if I was trying to be as sweaty and meta as I could be, I'd get rid of Crit Surge, because the healer should be healing me, not healing myself. That's not to say you can't have Vigor on if you're doing really hard content and maybe you need some more self-heal ability, but your healer should be able to keep you alive through vet content. So Deadly is a pretty popular set. I do highly recommend looking up like an Alcast build for your class if you're trying to, if you don't think your abilities are doing, if you're not getting the numbers that you want. Typically also, what people will do is they'll slot the Fighter's Guild ultimate on your front bar, because when you have the Fighter's Guild ultimate, it gives you passively more weapon damage, which is really useful. And then you can slot a class-specific ultimate on your back bar. So, for example, I got Dawnbreak on my front bar, but I'm going to almost always use my Storm Atronach, just because it does more damage.
Yeah, 14k at the time, a little higher.
Yep, nice. But yeah, it's really important to do like the first tests and see where you're at right now, just to see if you're improving when you're, changing sets around and abilities and such. Oh, here, Precursor, come back over here. You're getting put back in the fire. Yeah, does anyone have any questions or concerns or things they want to explain or I didn't explain well?
What was the command you typed to get the...
Oh, I can actually make better enchantments now.
Sorry, to get the... Oh yeah, CMX for combat metrics.
/
/ yeah, /.
The hardest question of the day, is it / or /?
I remember, like, I try to remember it by like which way it is quote unquote falling. If it was standing straight up,
Wait a minute.
it's either like falling back to the left at the start of the sentence, or it's leaning forward to the right towards the end of the sentence.
No, we don't want Prakruti. No.
So I've been trying to get the jewelry for the Leviathan set, and it's just not dropping.
Did you find
just repeated Ebon Armory pieces, and occasionally I'll get Lich or a piece that I already have of Leviathan.
Have you found a single ring yet?
I found a ring.
Because if you find any ring, you can now use the transmutation station to just craft the other one. Which may be what you need to do if RNG hates you that much. But it's an option.
RNG currently hates me.
Indeed. Gotta work on that radish dance. Yeah, so besides if anyone wants any help on their in their build in particular, I don't have anything else for the group as far as PvE Bootcamp goes. Yeah, the only general advice I can give is working on light attack weaving and trying to make sure you have the appropriate amount of health, everything else is in stamina, using divines. Try to make sure you're going for your physical pen. Be sure you're using a single 3 mil when you're trying to do your parses and your test, because the precursor is a lie. And also the trial dummy is a lie, unless you're trying to get prepare for trials, basically. Just know if you're doing a trial target dummy, the numbers are just different that you're trying to shoot for. For example, when I link them in help advice, it has the second part, and it's if you're trying to do Bet Craglorn, they want you to hit 30,000 on a trial dummy. Well, those are the old numbers. It's easier now. You probably want to be hitting 33, 35,000 for a veteran Craglorn trial on the Iron Atronach. Those numbers will be higher than what you get in a 3 mil. I think, for example, my numbers are 34,000 right now on a 3 mil, and I hit 58,000 on the Iron Atronach. So that's the gap difference between the two target dummies.
Any recommendation on weapon enchantments?
Yes.
If you're not using a poison, what should you?
Oh, enchantments. If you're not using a poison, just do. And you're using dual wield or two-handed?
Two-handed.
Just do poison damage enchantment then. Yeah.
Well,
if you use the poison, there's a chance. Oh, sorry.
Is it better than fire?
So it kind of depends. If you're a DK, you're going to want to be using poison.
Okay.
Because I forget what the passive is. The DKs have
increases damage for burning and poison status effect.
Yeah. And typically poison will get buffed, I believe, by your champion points. Where is it? Champion points. In the ritual, the mighty section is increase your physical poison and disease damage. So your poison enchantments and such will be getting buffed by those.
So now that I'm thinking about it, the Witch Knights set would probably be really good on a Dragon Knight that's poison based.
Yes, if I remember correctly, it's add 600 weapon damage to enemies that are poisoned or something like that, or to your poison abilities.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so there are a lot of builds you can do that aren't Alcast, our Lord and Savior, that he puts out there. The biggest thing to do though is if you're trying something different, is just make sure you parse test it to see if you're getting more or less than what you were trying before. That's really kind of the 3 mil parse is the litmus test on how your build's going. I don't think I have anything else in particular. So if you'd like to drop out, that's fine. I will just stick around if anyone has any questions. Also, if anyone needs help farming anything, I'm on my PvE DPS, so I'm available to help farm stuff if you want to work on your builds. The goal is to help you all get as well off before Thursday and the event starts as possible. Even if you're not running vet content, just improving your DPS in general will make the dungeon runs go much more smoothly and take less time. Which beneficial to everyone.
I just remembered I got my enchanting to 50, so I can actually make better enchantments for the crafted items, which will really help.
Oh, I did forget one thing that I was going to mention. Maelstrom Arena. When you eventually get to the point in your builds where they're decent, doing veteran Maelstrom Arena is kind of a rite of passage for people trying to do vet DPS in general, because doing Maelstrom Arena you're either going to learn mechanics and how to stay out of poop, or you're going to die. So the Maelstrom Arena in general is a really good just like training ground for trying to get to end game DPS. It's difficult. Don't get me wrong, especially doing it on veteran is going to be pull your hair out difficult. But once you're able to start clearing that, that's kind of the proof that you know how to when to interrupt stuff, when to stay out of poop, like how to do mechanics and stuff. It's a really good training ground test. So highly recommend. It is definitely an arena where the more DPS you got, the better, the easier it will go. But do recommend, definitely. Something to keep in mind. You can do it on normal, but normal Maelstrom Arena can be like face roll easy. I realize I'm saying that after like having done veteran Maelstrom Arena for years, but still something to learn. You still need to learn how to like interrupt stuff, things like that. Can recommend. 10 out of 10.
Ready.
Yeah, but no, I got nothing else for like the official PvE Bootcamp. Thank you for listening to me drone on for an hour and a half.
Thank you, Urban.
You're welcome. Would anyone like any help on their builds or farming something or anything?
Yeah, I need to farm Mighty Chudon.
Burberry, you can go ahead and wait. Why don't we have a timeout channel?
No.
She on.